I'm going to talk a little bit today about salt caverns and some work we're doing to evaluate the feasibility of cavern development in some of North Dakota's bedded salts, and then talk about why that could be important for the oil and gas industry. So just to set some context, I know I'm preaching to the choir with some of this, but as you all know, for every barrel of oil that we produce from the Bakken, the amount of gas that we produce has increased substantially for every barrel over time. In fact, gas-oil ratios in the Bakken have more than doubled in the past decade. So we're continuing to produce more and more gas. And in fact, Bakken-produced gas is some of the richest gas in the country, meaning it contains a really high proportion of natural gas liquids like ethane, propane, butane, pentane, with respect to methane. So as a result, as we're increasing the amount of gas, produced gas over time, we are also seeing a significant increase in the amount of NGL that are being produced. So for example, you can see the steady increase over time. Even during dips in oil production, we still have this relatively consistent increase in NGL. You've probably also heard Justin Kringstad, the director of the North Dakota Pipeline Authority, talk about some of the concerns he has with respect to takeaway capacity for both natural gas and NGL. In fact, with respect to NGL that's shown on this slide, even with existing and planned pipeline infrastructure, he estimates that we could run into issues as early as 2025. So a potential solution that could address not just short-term but also long-term challenges with respect to takeaway capacity is storage, and specifically subsurface storage in salt caverns that we could potentially develop right here in the state. So there are multiple opportunities and benefits that could provide. One, the ability to store NGL products could actually help facilitate petrochemical development in the state. So rather than ship our NGL to Canada, Kansas, Texas, for development of value-added products like plastics, resins, synthetic rubbers, lubricants, we could actually support that industry right here in the state. However, you have to have storage. It's critical. If you're going to build a billion, $5 billion plant, it's critical that you have uninterrupted supply of your feedstocks for that plant. In addition, as Jim talked a little bit about, this storage would also provide opportunities for EOR. So one of the challenges that we've seen with respect to EOR in the Bakken is having sufficient volume of gas to really fully capitalize on the EOR potential of the formation. And some of that is due to an inability really to aggregate enough gas, whether it's rich gas or that's primarily what we've looked at. An inability to aggregate enough of that so that you can achieve the injection rates and volumes that you really need to get the most bang for your buck. If we were able to aggregate NGL, it could be used either directly for EOR or even blending a small proportion of ethane, for example, in with CO2 or methane, significantly reduces the minimum miscibility pressure of your gas-oil blend and allows you to solubilize that oil into that mixture at significantly lower pressures. So it could have benefits there. And then, oops, sorry, not ready for that one yet. And then also for hydrogen. So Chad Wokin's going to talk a little bit about our hydrogen hub and some of the work we're doing in that space. And cavern development is a very important part of development of that hydrogen hub and a hydrogen economy. And one of the challenges with hydrogen is because it's such a small molecule, it has a tendency to leak. Salt caverns are very impermeable, and so they offer excellent storage for hydrogen to minimize any kind of leakage. So what have we been doing? Since about 2020, the EERC has been evaluating the various salt formations in the state to look at things like depth, thickness, quality of the salts, and then to evaluate the feasibility of, can you develop a cavern in these salts? Do they have sufficient geomechanical integrity to allow for commercial development of caverns and long-term use? So we actually, we did an initial effort just to look at some of the salts in the state where they exist, thickness, so forth. There's 5 major salt zones, but we've actually been focused on the 2 shallowest most salts, so that's the Dunham and the Pine, and really just looking at, where they exist, salt quality, so forth. In fact, we, with funding from the state, we were able to drill the Halite 1 well, which is just south of Williston there. And we were able to collect 70 feet of core from the Dunham and 60 feet of core from the Pine and do a detailed mineralogical and geomechanical analysis of that core, and then use that in geomechanical modeling to evaluate, okay, what size caverns could we develop? Do they hold up long term? And would they be suitable for commercial development? And the results of that initial phase were very positive and indicated that, that there's definitely potential there. So we are currently working on the next phase. We're working on the next phase of this effort, where we're working with a commercial partner to actually demonstrate the development of a cavern that would be used for commercial use. And so we're actually targeting a different location in the basin where the salts are a little bit thicker. And the goal right now, we're using well logs and geomechanical data to better understand or characterize a certain area. And once we kind of narrow that spot in, we'll be able to drill a stratigraphic test well, collect additional core, go through the whole suite of testing and analysis. Sorry, I'm losing my voice, I've had a cold. Go through the whole suite of testing and analysis, and then basically finalize the site and then go in for full cavern development with that commercial partner and a consultant that would assist with that. So we are excited about where we're going. The results of that really would provide additional data and information that we can use and extrapolate that across the Williston Basin to better understand the potential for cavern development in multiple locations. I do want to point out that this core is going to be on display downstairs tomorrow during the tour. So please join us for the tour. We can talk a little bit more about what we're doing in that space and some of the analytical capabilities that we have in the lab where it's displayed. So with that, thank you.